Hello and welcome to Oye Cinema Club. My name is Marina, aka Dignified Couch Potato, and tonight we're going to be reviewing Mean Girls, directed by Mark Waters and written by Rosalind Wiseman, and my favorite, Tina Fey. I chose this movie not only because it's one of my favorite, I know it word for word, but also so we can get a little sprinkle a little girly energy into our show. We've done a lot of male dominant movies, which I appreciate being opened up to all of that, but I just kind of want to open you guys up to something that I love. Tonight we have with me Steve Dez, El Dondino, and Jason Eccles. So let's jump into first impressions. Jason.
Right on. So this is my second time, I think, watching this movie. I probably could have watched it a lot more in my life, to be honest with you, because I absolutely love it. I saw this in theaters when it originally came out, and I was a big old fan of Lindsay Lohan because I thought she had infinite promise when this movie came out. I thought she was going to be the biggest star and the best actress in Hollywood, and she had her moment. Uh, and then Rachel McAdams was like a big discovery as well coming out of this thing. I mean, she's out of this world, and she's terrific in this thing. Is like her first big role, and also Amanda Seyfried, Seinfried, or whatever her name is. Like I thought, the whole the whole crew actually are very good, and you know all the actors kind of bouncing in and out of this thing, including Tina Fey, the writer. I mean, this is really her vision, and you think about this thing as being produced by Laurie Michaels. This is an SNL movie, really. Yeah, man, I love it, and it's such terrific writing too. Like after this movie came out, like it just does something really strong in the teen comedy genre. It's up there. Like honestly, I think it might be a top 10 teen comedy. Sometimes I forget about it for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Like when I think about the best teen comedies of all time, but this thing for me, honestly, is so tight and it's written so well, and you know what it is. It knows what it is. It knows what it's trying to be. It's that weird sort of like quirkiness that's probably coming from Tina Fey in there. And this is just a really cool movie. I would put this thing maybe just a notch below what was the name of that movie with Alicia Silverstone?
Clueless.
Clueless.
Mm.
Clueless. Yeah, this is in that same kind of box for me as far as like high school, because these kids are they're very real and they're trying so hard to create a world that is like a metaphor for another world. And that's what I think a lot of like the good teen comedy movies do. Like teen universe is its own universe, and whatever's important within their teen world, their bubble, it's their world. And I think the really good teen movies have a way of communicating that. I think this is one of those. Those are my first impressions, or my impressions of watching the movie this time around. Like I said, I really like all the metaphors in it. I think Tina Fey, fantastic writing all the way around. I loved it.
Awesome. And I want to thank you for wearing pink because on Wednesdays we wear pink. Now let's talk about who didn't wear pink
Nice.
while we get his first impression. Dino.
What? Cue the gangster sound.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, I said wear pink. I didn't say what.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not at my place, so I don't have really anything pink around me. Except I should have taken a picture. There was the fire of one of the planes dropping the pink stuff. So there is pink all around me.
Glad you're safe.
Yeah, I believe this is the second time I've also seen it. At first I definitely didn't want to watch it. I had some friends, I think, in college who were kind of watching it or were, recommended it to watch it. And so yeah, so I remember liking it. It was one of those like, I this is actually really good. It's got way more depth to it than what you would think from the cover or just the title, or then eventually kind of Lindsay Lohan's reputation or whatever might have been. But yeah, I think Jason's right on that. This was that kind of shining moment that she had, and like all this potential where she was headed, right? And interesting, you said it's a SNL movie with some SNL actors, but they aren't the stars, which I think is really, really kind of interesting and cool because I don't think there are that many Lorne Michaels produced movies out there that their alumni, if you will, are like secondary characters. So I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more the first time, maybe because I was watching it with people. The second time, there's like some things that really hit that I think are almost like I was gonna say priceless, but not priceless, timeless. Timeless. That's a word, right? And then there are a few things that I'm like, okay, this is not aging as well. But I like that you were kind of saying that it's in the top 10 because I do think this teen movie is way less problematic as it's gone through time than like John Hughes movies, right? Or other teen movies in what, because even the use of the R word and stuff like that is, you know, um, I think is already being shown as she's stupid and she's wrong, or at least that's how I was taking it. Although I don't know if you guys noticed in the subtitles when the Vietnamese girls start going at each other, they the subtitle says the N word. Anyone else notice that?
No.
Like, isn't that
What?
fucking wild? Once the burn book has been distributed, and I guess the both Taiwanese girls were making out with a coach, and when they get into a fight, and all you see is the subtitles, it says the N word. What? Anyway, I don't know how that got through. I don't know. And then I was like, I don't know Vietnamese, but I'm pretty sure I didn't hear the N word, and I don't know how they have the N word in another language. It would be weird. Anyway, that's the one thing I noticed, and maybe you guys had also heard it. Yeah, Tina Fey was great. Even I forgot Amy Poehler was in it. She's like, I could watch way more of just Amy Poehler doing whatever she does. Yeah, so I thought overall it was pretty good. I was never quite a fan of Clueless, maybe because there were a lot of girls in my high school that were kind of like Clueless or very Alicia Stone wannabe, and just as Clueless, like they didn't know how to stop a bus when they were on it. Uh, Kind of like pull the string, they didn't know that, and so I think this might be edging Clueless out in the list for me. But maybe if I were to rewatch Clueless, it would be different. Anyway, long Dino first impression, second impression, kudos.
Thank you. And Steve.
First impressions. So this is my second time watching the movie. Just like Dino and Jason. Uh, the first time I watched it, I wasn't so excited to watch it, but then I was like, "Oh, it's an actual good movie." But now the second time watching it, I think the first time I watched it was a long time ago. Now the second time watching it, much older, get more the jokes. Like I was like, oh my god, this movie is great. And just like Jason was saying about the writing is so good. Like I think this is one of those films that like you can study to make a great film, or at least a great script, because every character is very fleshed out. There are characters out here that literally like I watched it and I was like, oh my god, that character stood out to me, even though that character wasn't so important and stuff like that. And there were moments that weren't necessarily intentional to be a joke, but they made me laugh out loud. Uh, but it's more about like knowing the history now of certain people, like when Lindsay Lohan says that line of like, I don't steal. I laughed like nobody's business since we know what happens with her in real life. But the movie is great. There's so many moments, little flashback, like little things that I didn't even notice. I don't even know if it was because, like, different. Like I didn't see. I did, for example, the version I watched didn't have subtitles, or at least I didn't even try to see if we had. And so I did not see that stuff about the Taiwanese girls. Uh, but there were little moments, like for example, when she said, like, when she talks about her first love, and it goes to that very quick flashback of her in like Africa and like trying to hug a kid and stuff. Like that was hilarious to me. Like those are little moments that like add so much, even though they were like so quick, that I really enjoyed. And funny enough, I am somewhat connected to this film in a way because, fun fact, I actually worked in Ariana Grande's music video, Thank You Next. And they basically, what they did was recreate this entire movie, uh, at least as much as possible. Like we did the Christmas scene with like Kris Jenner, we did like school scenes, the sleepover, but I wasn't in that one. And we did some things. And then I also worked in Amy Poehler's directorial debut for Netflix, where she kind of did sort of like a high school themed movie. That's kind of in a way her version of this in a way, but not quite. That doesn't hit like this one. But overall, it's a great film. Great performances overall. I have one thing while watching the movie that I was like, oh, I wish they would have recasted this person. But then knowing what happened, it was like, oh, I get it. Was the coach the one that was talking about sex and stuff? I was like, why didn't that role was played by, I don't know, a Jason Sudeikis or a Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler or somebody from SNL to keep it SNL? But then I was like, oh yeah, he's like sleeping with underage girls. That's not cool. I get why they just put some random guy there. So yeah, those are my first impressions.
Awesome. My first impressions. I this is probably my 577th time watching this. I honestly really don't know. I didn't see it when it first came out, just because like um I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of stuff, and I think I was still at home when it came out. Um, so I saw it when I moved out, and it'd been out for a while. So I think I was late to like being a super fan for it. But it resonated so much with me because even though I didn't finish high school, I finished high school at home too. So I did kind of the opposite. Like she leaves homeschooling to go to high school. I kind of finished out at home for high school. But just like even in the real world, like it taught me a lot about like how girls can be. Like I wasn't used to that. So a lot of like the jokes, it's crazy that people do act like that, like manipulate and like stretch the truth to try to make you look bad. And if you have no idea what they're doing, it's like you get tricked, kind of like Lindsay Lohan's character. Um, Watching it again, I love it every time. Like it always hits. I laugh at all the same jokes. I definitely see what Dino was saying about some of the jokes aren't timeless. Like some of the situations like with calling house phones and things like those are older, but it's still pretty funny. Like, it just takes you back to like people trying to set you up on a three-way call to try to get information. Like I just love that it really made it really talked about just how women can be in situations, and then also how we should be, and just being a little bit more considerate. And then sometimes it's just we're not friends with the right people. Sometimes you just need to find your people so that you aren't weird, because we're all special in a way. But I really love the movie. Clearly I feel like nobody probably looks at it that deep, but those are just some of the lessons I got. So yeah, that's my first through 577th impression.
Well, I think I would imagine we all actually look at it from not like a similar lens per se, But I mean, I saw those themes in the film, and I saw like them going for those elements about like social cues and social structure and hierarchy in the high school. Like I think it toys with all that stuff in that hierarchy brilliantly in the groups. I mean, this isn't the first teen movie to like deal with like each kind of group. Like there's still every teen show does that grouping thing, but this thing, you're right, it deals with like sort of that cattiness of women and how like in those situations like everybody's losing and maybe you should treat each other a little more kindly and whatnot. It's fascinating. Like also, as a boy, as a man, I think back to like high school and stuff, and I'm like, well, I wonder like how much of that stuff was going on. I'm sure it was. I know it was going on under the surface at like my high school. I was so far removed from it because I wasn't like in any social group. I was just like in my own world. So none of that stuff meant anything to me. I would run away from high school when it was over. But yeah, but I love this. I feel like it nails it. I think it's very universal, and that's a part of the reason why it's been so successful.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of that, you kind of answered it, but maybe you could think a little bit deeper. What would you say? Well, you know how Janice Ian draws up the map of where Lindsay Lohan should sit at lunch, and I always thought that was such a cool scene because it was like, wow, this is true. Like, even though I didn't have the full high school experience, I knew enough to know that it's really realistic. They probably missed a couple groups, but which group would you think you would have sat with if that was your high school?
Mm. Um,
I didn't see the theater people, but in college, I kind of, because my high school was tiny, um, so everyone knew each other. Actually, the whole high school was probably the size. No, no, that high school seemed kind of small. Also, anyway, in college, definitely kind of theater kids, or the group that she actually sat with, right? Kaplan, I think is her name. She was in Party Down also, which is a great show that people should check out. Yeah, so I would probably sit at that table. Oh man, I wish I were at the band table that we're getting it on, but definitely not. That was not me, even though I did play the trumpet, but that's not how we rolled, or else I would have stayed in band, you know. Uh, anyway, yeah. So I would be sitting with her friends, the gay guy and the goth girl or alt girl or indie girl, whatever denomination
E
um
girl.
she
I
would be.
think it's called E girl now.
Oh, e girl.
I'm not
I'd
sure.
be
so
I'd be
I,
the
I
e
think
girl.
I think I would have what I did in high school. I sort of moved around a little bit, but I think most of my friends were the jocks, unfortunately. So I would have sat with the jocks, but our jocks were way cooler than their jocks. We weren't like banging heads with each other or anything like that. I think I probably would have hung out with them mostly because those were my friends. And then, I sort of like was the mayor of my lunchroom. So I would like, visit other tables from time to time.
Yeah, I
Nice.
agree. I agree with that part. Like I'm definitely like wholeheartedly a person that bounces. Like to the point that it's like when I was a senior in high school, I knew people in freaking sixth grade. Like that's to the point that I
Weird.
bounced.
Yeah, very
I know.
weird.
I
Very
know,
weird.
but I know, but it's just like I became friends with like everybody and their parents. So like I knew everything about everyone. In my class, I graduated with 93 students. I knew those people's favorite food, colors, all types of stuff because
Mm.
I was just the one person that like saw okay, everybody's like in a group, but it's like why do I have to just be in a group? I can just be friends with everybody and be cool. And that's what I did. And people had their little rivalries and stuff, but I was like, I'm above all that. Like I kid you not, there was a point, just one year, I think it was like when I was in 10th grade, I became really, really good. No, 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 actually, I was in ninth grade. I became really great friends with the 10th graders to the point that they accepted me as their own. And everybody in the ninth grade Everybody in the ninth grade literally had a crazy rivalry against me just
Mm.
because just because I befriended the 10th graders. I was
Were you
like,
voted
this
King
is childish.
Fling?
It's crazy how
Whatever.
much we never forget those things. Like,
King
Yeah,
Fling?
were you spring fling king over there? Ninth grade.
they didn't have those things in my high school.
I moved around a lot. So even so on top of not like finishing high school in a school, like I could even compare it to like middle school, early high school. Um so everywhere I moved it was kind of different. Like sometimes it was plastics. Like I was definitely with that little crew of like girls who just, thought they were cute and playing games. Or sometimes I was a little sportier when I moved. Sometimes I was more of like the student council group. So it just really varied for me too. I feel like a lot of creatives probably feel that way. Like they bounced
So
around.
every time you moved, you would be a new person.
Reinvent herself. Yeah.
It just varied, like, so many elements to it. Like, I feel like when I moved to Chicago, it was like, "Ooh, she's light-skinned," and, like, I was so popular because there wasn't a lot of diversity. So it was like, "Who's this mixed chick coming in with curly hair?" Or I moved to a town where it's predominantly white, and they were a little racist, and I just felt like I was a little bit more shunned. Or so then I started playing sports, and it's like, "Ooh," at least she's getting points for us. Like, that's how I kind of had to fit in that way. And then when I moved to Georgia, there was like a
Oh boy.
diverse melting pot. And that's the first place I felt like I kind of just made friends based on like personality more so than just like extremely standing out to one extreme or the next. That's probably why for me. So yeah, I always wanted to reinvent myself, but I feel like I'm always the same. It's just the environment that kind of varies on where you end up. Um, yeah, so many different factors. Um, but yeah, so what about I feel like there's so many characters. What is everybody's favorite character? We can start with you, Steve.
Oh boy, the great question. There are so many, man. It's a tough one. It's a tough one because there's a few that I really enjoy. I definitely have to give an honorable mention to Amy Poehler's character because from the little moment she's on screen, especially when she gets introduced, is hilarious right off the bat. She did a kick-ass job. But I'm gonna say slightly underrated. I have to give it up to my boy, the kid from the mathematician club, the Indian kid, Pakistani kid, I don't know, Middle Eastern kid.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
he killed it. Let me tell you. I was like, is this like Aziz Ansari as a kid, or like who? Like what happened to this kid? Like why isn't he a bigger deal? Because his comedic timing and just everything. Like from the moment he's on screen, he's like very stoic. Like you're gonna join the club or what? Like we're trying to get these jackets and like that's it. But then it keeps growing over time. Like every time he just pulls up, he just comes with like the most outrageous things.
I wish
And
you were
I was
out there
like,
that thing. I love that part.
I was like, I love this kid. Like I'm like, what happened to him? Like what really happened to him? Like he should have been a huge star. If this world was fair, he should have been a huge star.
Yeah, he was great. He's
Yeah.
kind of like one of those, I think you mentioned it before. There was a couple people that even though they weren't supposed to stand out, they may only have like two or three scenes in the movie, 2 to 10 lines in the whole movie. You never forget it. Like it's just always something that you think about. What about you, Dino?
He wasn't in it much, and the first time I remember really liking him, and I do. One thing I noticed, I don't know if I noticed it the first time, but I'm gonna say Jason, not because it's the movie, but because more so because he sees more movies. but it's Tim Meadows, and part of it is when shit breaks out, he grabs a bat to go out. Is that Lean on Me? Is that what's the movie? Is that Morgan Freeman or who is that? Like shit. Every time something happens, he's walking the hallways with a bat. Is that a thing? Is that just my imagination? So Tim Meadows, great, awkward. The carpal tunnel in the cat, like, is that the extent? Did he have surgery? Um, yeah. So him for sure is someone that I every time I felt like he had it. So I mean, everyone again, the Amy Poehler and all that. I could watch forever, but the moments and when he comes out with the bat is just great. And then a lot of people have really good comedic timing because it's like we'll keep you here till midnight or whatever. It's like actually we have to let them go at 4. Fine, we'll keep you guys here till 4. So yeah, I'll go Tim Meadows.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love him. Growing up in Chicago for part of my youth, like when he said, like, I didn't leave the South Side of Chicago for this, I felt that in my soul because that was such a huge thing for people to get out of the city and go move into the suburbs. And it's like, yeah, this is too much. Like I'm supposed to have like a solid, quiet lifestyle out here in the burbs. But yeah, Jason, what about you?
it's Amy Poehler for me. She's so funny in this thing, and she just embodies her character, and she has fun with it, and she plays with it, and the character is so truthful and so honest that it sort of leaves room for her to basically steal every scene because she's like the least grounded, I think, in this thing. Everyone else is a little bit more grounded than her, and she's very much playing the character. But it's great when it's just like this one person who's just like, the drunk mom who's oblivious to everything, trying to be a teenager. And like we all know that mom is out there and she exists in this world, and Amy just really has fun with it, and her comedic timing, like you guys, kept mentioning comedic timing. It's there. It's just every look on her face, her eye rolls when she says the line about what did she say about the drink? She goes, "Are there drinks? Is there alcohol in this?" And she says, she goes, "No. I mean, unless you want it to be, because this is not one of those houses." It's like, what? I'd rather you
No,
do
but
it
she's
here than
like,
do it out there.
yeah, yeah, because I'd rather you
Yeah,
guys
I,
be
I know that
safe
mom
in a,
growing
yeah.
up.
We all know. We all know.
100%. No, I love her
I
for like, yeah, she paved the way for the cool mom, not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. Like it's
Yep.
said to this day, everybody quotes that. Um, for me, I feel like I have a new character every time I watch it, and I watched it a lot. But when I think consistently of who's been my favorite and who I quote the most every year, I love Karen. I'm gonna mess up her name too. I know you were struggling with that, Jason. Amanda Seyfried. Sorry if you're out there watching this. But I love Karen's character. Like it was like I love dry humor, and I feel like she has like the driest under the radar humor like
Yeah.
every time. Just hilarious. Like, you want to do something cool? Let's go to Taco Bell. Like, what? Like, where did that come from?
Right.
Just like, her breast telling the weather. Like, I just remember the first time I watched it, how much I laughed. And consistently, each time I watch it, every time she talks, I'm laughing. And it's like, you should not still be laughing at this as many times as you watch the movie. So she's definitely my favorite. Like, the first cousins joke takes me out because it's like she looks so serious. Like, it's not my cousin, it's my first cousin. There's first cousins, and there's cousins, first cousins, and second cousins. Like, what is going on? And then a super second place is Gretchen Wiener. Just like growing up with curly hair, like in that anxiety. And I've definitely had some friends that I feel like I supported so much and they just knew I did. And I held all their secrets. Like when she burst, I felt that too. But Karen's my number one.
And I was right. It is Mr. Morgan Freeman Lean on Me movie. Uh, where he's carrying the bat. Anyway,
Yeah,
wham.
And
I
yeah,
I
that's
I
so
am
fast.
I am gonna give another honorable mention
since I
to
did.
the extras in the chaos scene because I was paying attention. There were some that were going ham, but there were some that were so funny because they were just like, like it's like other girls fighting, and I noticed that it was just girls. That was
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
some of those tackles, that was great. Oh yeah, honorable mention, not necessarily for the whole thing, but who was the boy crush or the dude when they do those quick like turning into a animal, and he has the most amazing, because he's so right there, like baboon, monkey, whatever, just like while she's fighting, while the girls are fighting, and he's like excited. That I was like, that is amazing. Whatever facial thing he got going on for that, and his pearly whites came off
I
amazing.
love Jonathan Bennett. Speaking of being connected to the film, Jonathan Bennett was my boss for a few years because I was in the culinary department on a couple of like the Food Network shows that he was hosting, and then I eventually started doing like crafty for those shows too. So it was really cool. Like I definitely like right off the bat was like, oh my gosh, like you know, but I was like, calm down. But yeah, he did a really good job in the movie.
Oh, he
I'm
was the boyfriend material,
Mhm.
whatever.
The one who did the little monkey. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
really good scene. So that brings me to my next question. What's your guys' favorite scene slash joke? Like what moment? I feel like there's a lot of like SNL skits in this movie. Like I just feel like I'm watching something new in almost every scene. But what is your guys' favorite?
Hmm.
I
What is my
mean,
favorite scene in this movie?
clearly Amy Poehler is literally, it's like drunk uncle or whatever. Like it's a character that we've seen multiple
Yeah,
times in
for
different
sure.
forms on SNL, usually Weekend Update or whatever. Uh, but favorite scene. I mean, Fetch is always a great. Stop trying to make Fetch happen. Um, I'd have to think. Anyone got one? Because
Well,
I'm like,
for me, I'll go first then.
yeah.
For me, it's the entire holiday scene, from beginning to end, um, when they're getting ready for it, and like when they're, oh, you need to stay on my left, not my right. She doesn't know what to do. She's kicking it into her boyfriend's face, and then they have to sing it all together. Amy Poehler in the background with the camera, which is super classic, like just trying to be a high schooler, but also like record her daughter doing this. And at the end of the scene, when we find out that was Janice Ian's original choreography, and Kevin G comes in and he's his random self. And the scene also ends with Regina George telling Gretchen that Fetch is never going to happen. Like, I feel like that whole 7 to 10 minutes is like so iconic, like of just showing everybody's personality and also just being hilarious.
I
Yeah,
The
think
thing,
I would agree with that.
uh, I think I'm gonna go ahead and say because there's so many moments. It's very difficult to like pinpoint one, but I'm gonna say this series of moments when she basically has a secret on the main plastic girl, and she's trying to set up the dude that can sneak up to her cheating on him. And it's
uh,
just like how she laid out the plan is like, oh, this is going to be very simple. But like all the time is like failing.
Right.
And it just shows that even for something as silly as that, like even the most basic plan, like fails from time to time. So I thought it was just clever the way they did that stuff.
Yeah,
And
that
that was
was clever.
hilarious because like the description of where he needed to go was so long. Like when she gets her purse taken and he's like, it looks like he's heading to the projection screen above the auditorium. Like what? Like I almost stuttered there. Like I wonder how many times they had to like do that line. Like that was just like that was hilarious scene too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's pretty
almost
good.
feels like it needed a third, right? Just one more time maybe for it. But I mean, but it would be the coach. I think would be the button, right? The fact
Yeah,
that the
that's
coach is
definitely the
with the
button for
student.
sure. Yeah.
I can't think of one. But bringing the Christmas thing, the CD player skipping, like when you were talking about things, I don't know why I never said anything about the phones, the landlines, and I just want to make it clear that you were kind of just saying that I was criticizing phone lines or whatever, or wasn't a thing.
No, not
Uh,
criticizing. You said some of the jokes aren't timeless. And I was just saying that's one of them.
well, okay. I didn't mean timeless as in they weren't going to be funny because no one knows phone
But
lines.
also here's the thing. That moment, that thing about the phone lines is that at that moment that was an actual thing. I
Yeah,
don't think that's even being done anymore because now people are like in social media and TikTok and
yeah.
all this stuff. So people don't really do three-way calls.
We
But
didn't
like
have the technology in Paraguay for that, so I didn't grow up with
I
that.
How do you know
I
teenagers?
did it.
How do you know
I
teenagers are doing three-way calls?
Maybe on their
not
cell phones.
maybe on their cell phones, but even then they're like
I
I
just
don't
got a
know.
three-way call before I came online with you guys.
No, but
Yeah,
on your
from people
cell
your
phone, it
age.
pops up. On your cell phone, it pops up. It's harder on cell phones now for it to be like hidden, if that makes any sense. Like it will show usually that it's a like ad call. Like yeah, I've had three-way calls with Paraguay, like because of different business now, and it's on the phone and it's on these. So it would be more so you still have someone, or it'd be what would be probably the equivalent is kid having the iPad FaceTiming or whatever voice chatting with the friend to eavesdrop on the phone, you know, chatting with the other person so it can hear, but that's multiple
Yeah,
levels
that
of
may be how they
technology.
would do it now. You're right, possibly. But yeah, I mean, there was that one, and there was another one early on in the film too that kind of like made it feel like dated. What was that?
When she calls at the mall, because that's what I was thinking about, like, calling the operator to call someone's house. I don't think, like, can you yeah, who would even think to do well, more than likely, there would be no house phones, like,
I
to do
mean,
that.
are there any Planned Parenthoods left, right? That's going to be a thing of the past, the way things are
Planned
going.
Parenthood in Illinois? What?
Not
No.
in Ohio.
Oh, that's
Ohio, huh? The vote that just happened. Hopefully that sticks around there.
is that the one you were
Let me
thinking,
go
Jason?
back to the CD player because
Oh,
again, not theater thing, but like whenever in school we were able to do like a little presentation instead of doing the project. It's like, all right, we're gonna have soundtracks, we're gonna have this, and first it was like, it was still on cassette tapes, right? Record and record. And sometimes there was a little boombox that had like two tapes, so you could just put and record one from each other. Or then we had the CD player with a cassette tape, so we could hit play on the CD player and record it on the cassette and take that. And then, ooh, we had Winamp, and we could start burning CDs. And then that was a whole issue because then the recordable CDs, it would work on certain CD players, but not on other CD players. So sometimes you would bring it. So sometimes you would make a CD and a cassette tape just in case, because you didn't know if it was actually going to work when you got to school. And then it could skip. And that would happen either in plays, and it would happen in our Dino Mega Disc sidebar. Anyway, it was great. And the only thing it reminded me of a classmate's quinceañera where you got to dance the waltz with everyone in your family and then all your classmates and all your cousins and everything. And the CD skipped because it was a DJ or whatever, and it skipped during the waltz, and it's just her out there, and it was maybe with her dad or someone else, and I was like, oh boy. So yeah, that's it. That to me like encapsulated so much of just like I felt that struggle of just like putting so much effort, and then freaking technology of the time, just ruined everything.
I felt Jason that he walked away.
He was like, yeah. He's gonna start talking about CD minus R versus plus R next. Like, what?
I'll just state
Jason's
mine
like,
really quickly, and we can
yeah,
move on. My favorite scene, honestly, it's the most memorable scene to me. I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff in it, but I really like the monologue that Tina Fey kind of like has to break down and tell all the girls at the end of at the end of the tale, at the end of our film. Because it's right, like everybody gets caught up in all these things that won't even matter later, and we're all guilty of it, I guess, think like that's our world and that's who we should be. And but her saying that they need to be more thoughtful and kinder to each other, I thought that was a great lesson and a great message, because of all the teen movies, rarely any of them ever do that at the end. That's like a new thing. There's lessons at the end, but it's kind of like life goes on as a teen. This was like, hey man, let's be a little bit more conscious.
or it's usually just one character learning the lesson, right? This was kind of a sit down, come to Jesus moment, kind of for everyone. The raising the hands, open your eyes, raising the hands, open your eyes, because it's usually just like one or two people get their comeuppance, if you will. But yeah, the one thing that will matter down the line is freaking making out, being a teacher and making out with students or whatever. That shit don't go away, or it shouldn't go away.
Coach Carr, get away from the teenage girls. I was like,
I do. Can I? You know what I'm really proud of, that our couches are lining up, and it feels like I'm with you in our apartment, Jason. I miss you. Is what I'm saying.
What's
Our
lining up?
couches.
the
Our
couch.
Oh
couches.
yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty great.
Why do we think the same thing? Oh man! All
The
right.
lesson was great. I mean, there's so many classics lines in the lesson. We have our favorite one of the I think one of the most popular quotes from the movie is when the girl who doesn't even go to school starts participating and like speaking about things, and um Damien comes out and he's like, she doesn't even go here. Like you like that's it's such a classic line. And I do agree, like teen movies usually were center around a love story. Like this had something, Lindsay Lohan's character is in love with a guy, but it's now her new friend's ex. Like, so we have that element, but the lesson at the end of the movie wasn't about like, oh, it all works out and she gets the man. It was like, no, we all learn these lessons. And then she takes that on even into the prom scene. And like, she also speaks more about like just being nicer. So I like that. And yeah, she does end up with the guy at the end, but I don't feel like it's like so highlighted to where that was the main thing you get from it. Like somebody changes and now we can love each other until we go to college and never speak again. It's like it was real lessons that people could take with them into the real world too.
Yeah, for
And there
sure.
again, Tim Meadows kills it. Usually people don't give a speech; they just take the.
That his dry humor was on it. It was so hard to say, like, he's definitely one of my favorite characters too. It was definitely hard to pick one person because yeah, like I that always it reminds me when anybody is like talking for a really long time and it should have been
Like
wrapped
me.
up. I just want to say, usually people just take the crown and leave. It's how you feel. I literally think that, and like no one would understand, but like that's what I'm thinking about. Like when something goes on too long, like I am now, it's like usually just people just take it and get on off. Like he never got angry, even when he was angry, it was always like super sarcastic. Like it was, like
What
Anthony,
what I-
you.
what I just thought, because you mentioned that, Marina, of like everyone kind of uh having that moment, and it just isn't that one character. It isn't about just getting the boy. It's like all those Freddie Prinze Jr. movies or that period where. So I just noticed that this is a little bit of why this I think is higher up in the levels. Maybe with Jason, this resonates. Is that all these movies are like, let's take the nerdy or the ugly girl and beautify her because we have a bet with whoever. But this one kind of flips it because it's like the outcasts are like, oh, it seems that for whatever reason they want to have you as their project and mold you. How about we use it to get back at them? And I don't think there's been a lot of that, even though it kind of backfires and she actually like gets into her head and all that. But I don't know, maybe that's why it does resonate more, or it's higher up in that because it switches it up.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's pretty original on like high school like genres. Like it's like a storyline pre-Netflix streaming service where we have all kinds of stuff now. I can think of some teen movies that have come out recently that I feel like a little bit more deeper than just boy girl. But I wonder, yeah, I'm curious if there's anything like pre 2005 that was like Mean Girls.
Well, Heathers.
No, 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 no.
Murder?
Heathers. You guys never seen Heathers?
No, I'm saying that was
I remember it, but I don't. I remember of the movie, but I can't. I do not recall if if I saw it. I mean, yeah.
is it a murder movie? Like someone gets killed in that, right?
I think maybe someone does die in Heathers. I remember Christian Slater's in it and Winona Ryder. Does someone die in Heathers? I forget. But Heathers was, I mean, it was a group of mean girls.
Yo, talking about someone dying. When she got hit by that bus, I was not expecting that. Like because I haven't seen that movie in such a long time, so I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, wait. Then I was thinking, I was like, didn't they do that in Scary Movie? Scary Movie took it from Mean Girls, or was Scary Movie before or after?
I
I don't
don't
know.
remember. And I also think maybe Not Another Teen Movie made a joke about that too. I can't remember.
Scary Movie was before because I was in Paraguay when Scary Movie came out, and I was in the U.S. when Mean Girls came out. So, oh my God, I just looked up Heather's. I totally watched this movie multiple times because it came on cable a lot, but I have no recollection of it.
I don't think I did watch it, so I'm gonna add it to my list. I think it was the name reminded me of a movie that was just solely about two girls in high school, and one of them kills the other.
Also, I wanted to give another honorable mention to Regina, Rachel McAdams' character, because it takes an absurd amount of fleshing of a character, especially in a movie, especially somebody that's not recognized necessarily like that, to make you hate her. And everything made you hate her from the jump. Like
Yeah,
even the
she's a great
fact that
villain.
she told her mom to like shut up, like move over, she controlled even her own mom. Like that's manipulation to the next level.
She was the poster child for that character that never that there are girls and unfortunately women like that like literally don't hold themselves accountable in any means and they will get their way no matter what. Like and it was so I hate to say it, like it was so cool to watch her crumble. And there really is a breakdown on how people like that continue, just like your band of thieves and being
When
hot. Like
when she came out with the book to Tim Meadows, I was like, oh, she's the first Karen. Like,
Yeah, and she is Karen. Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because as I was watching it this time, it really dawned on me that like some people, like for me, I really have to think about like a master plan to get back at somebody. But in her immediate impulsive rage, she immediately knew how to break down these girls. Like I wouldn't think about that. You know what? I'm going to plant the burn book on these girls and get them real good. But she was still crying. Like, it would take me like 3 days to come up with that. And she immediately was like, this girl is a fugly slut and da da da. Picture, principal. Let's
That's
go.
that screenshot game now, like keeping them receipts, screenshot that shit. It's usually not as, extensive for everyone, but it's definitely you have that like, oh, shit happened. Let me put you on blast, you know. Uh
Yeah.
so and then everyone kind of jumps up. Uh oh crap, you brought something up with that of the book. Oh, they kind of did that thing in Sex Education, bringing up, talking about Netflix and all that. If people haven't seen Sex Education, the TV show, um, kind of it has a similar thing where, but it's a sex psychologist that kind of is talking to the kids in the school, and then someone kind of breaks in and takes her notes and photocopies it and like distributes it throughout the school, and shit goes down. So it
Ooh.
is
And
a thing that, yeah, you should watch Sex Education. It's
yeah, I'll put that on the list.
yeah, yeah.
Harriet the Spy was like the OG, was like revealing
Oh
those
no.
personal thoughts. Any more honorable mentions before we go into final thoughts?
I didn't realize. I feel bad because it's the guy from the guy that plays the janitor in Scrubs is in it, but also he I mean he's from Beer Shark Mice, I believe, the old Chicago improv. So it's always fun seeing Chicago improv people pop up, not just, Tina Fey and Tim Meadows and all the, Second City people, but seeing the other people that might not be as known. So I was like, oh, he did some movies.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people like that in there to where, yeah, every time I see them in something else, even though it's probably other couple things, I'm like, oh, they were on Mean Girls.
Yeah, the mom also was in SNL as well.
Was it on SNL?
The mom,
Like
Lindsay
Lindsay
Lohan.
Lohan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I saw her at Gus's Chicken like last month with her family.
Yeah, she used to do the sweaty balls.
Oh, nice.
I gotta
Okay.
look that one up.
I thought she was
Right.
familiar. I can't think of her name though either at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know why her name Kathleen something maybe.
Anna Geistier.
Yep, yep. And I guess Taylor, guess Gastier, guess Taylor. Maybe that's why we don't remember it, because we don't know how to pronounce her last name.
And we didn't even get into their role. Like, I feel like they probably had the mildest role in the movie, but they was still pretty funny. Like the parents, like not knowing how to ground her and just
Well,
like,
this is based on a book, I believe, right? Because I thought that's what it said.
yeah.
That when you also said the writers, I think it's just Tina Fey, and the other writer is just accredited as the book. So I would imagine in the book, the parents probably have a more interaction. I would imagine, and that was more of a thing back in the day, kind of like 10 rules to date my daughter or something. Like you had the kooky parents, like you clearly you had the Amy Poehler's, like, like there are no rules in this house, but then you had the parents that were more kind of down to earth, awkward, didn't know how to really parent, but were actually the good kind of parents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. When Lindsay Lohan slaps her butt and they go, ooh. She wasn't doing that in Africa. Um, but okay. And the book was called um, Queen Bees and Wannabes. So,
Hmm.
Oh, wow, what a name. Between these and wannabes.
did anybody look up how much it cost to make this movie?
I did not, but I'd be happy to do so.
$1 trillion. I would say back then, 30 million to make it. Is that a lot? 20 million? I don't think it would have been much, right?
Just need one location. No, it was high school and I guess the mall and the
Less.
um.
The budget for the film was 17 million.
Okay, 20 million was a little closer, but yeah,
Hmm.
sounds about
But
right.
it grossed 130 million globally. So, this movie turned Lindsay Lohan into a full-on star,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they did it for very little money. And, I guess they maybe tried to replicate this with the rest of her career. It would seem like,
And
when
And
this movie,
then
like,
this,
and they're still making money off the streaming deal because on Netflix it said that they removing that movie in September.
I saw that
August
August
31st.
31st.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um, and I think this is probably what this gave Tina Fey so much clout. I think, right? This is before 30 Rock. I would imagine, like after this probably, maybe got her greenlit in a few other projects. I would imagine.
Mm.
For sure. It definitely put her on the map for me. Like I was, I've loved SNL ever since I was a kid. But for me, it really turned her into being one of my favorite comedians. Just knowing that she had a lot to do with the jokes, and it also opened my eyes up to improv because I'd always been a little nervous about like stand up, but I was like, wow, like it feels like some of these jokes are even improvised in this movie. Um, but yeah, all right. Well, let's get into our final thoughts. I actually forgot what order we went in, so it's probably going to be out of order. Dino, you can go first.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, enjoyed the movie. Second time, I was a little bored this second time. I think it was just because it was myself. I think it was like maybe it was a little stressful day just watching the smoke piles of the fire a mile away. So I don't know if I just wasn't in that much of a teeny kind of movie. But the parts that I did laugh, I really laughed and really enjoyed. But there were the problematic stuff. I even looked. I was like, was there an N word? And sure enough, there was a N word in the translation. Because then I also read that Vietnamese speakers and other people were like, they don't even say that. They said nothing wrong in the language, and then just for a cheap joke or whatever, they put that. So that was a little disappointing. That, and I guess recently people have kind of called Tina Fey out, like a lot of people, for certain types of jokes or things they added that aren't necessarily racially appropriate or anything like that. But other than that, I do think this movie is gonna be higher up as it goes on. And again, John Hughes is kind of, amazing movies, but those are way more problematic seeing them now. So I would recommend this to a whole slew of people because teen movies are like part of human society, human life, going all the way. My headphones are about to die, so maybe you still hear me. But going all the way to like Porky's and American Pie and The Breakfast Club and everything else in between, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it to people. I probably would watch it again, but it would have to be with other people. I wouldn't just uh sorry Marina, I wouldn't just plug this in to make me feel happy.
Thank you. Jason, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I really like this movie. This thing kind of steers away from like what film school conventional wisdom would tell you, like never make your character do narration. If your character is doing narration, you're doing it wrong. But the truth is, in a lot of movies, I see that rule get broken, and those are great movies. Like they always say, what is it like in writing? If you use narration, then you're not being very creative, or it's like the last resort of a bad writer or something. It's something to that nature. But when I see great movies like this that use narration, you can just throw it out the window because some stories are just better with a little bit more behind the scenes explanation so that we as the audience can keep our eyes focused on the action. You can give us like the background stuff and the little details for that and just show us the action happen. And this movie does that. There's not really a dull scene or a scene that drags in this thing. Even just like how Goodfellas does the thing where it's like we're just showing the scene of them walking down the hall or whatever, but then the narration is explaining everything that's happening in their world, and that allows us to kind of like flash forward, like maybe a week or two in their life, because it's like, all right, like this amount of time has happened, this is past, this is how things are developing. We don't have to show you any of that. Um, so yeah, this movie I think is terrific. Like I said, it's very smart. It's very well directed. It's very well written. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I would give this thing another shot. I think it still holds up. I think like there's not too much problematic stuff about it. You know, surprisingly, honestly, because this thing is 19 years old now. You guys, Mean Girls is 19. It'll be 20 next year. Um, and who would I recommend it to? Really, comedy people. I would recommend this to anybody who wants to see a good laugh. I would recommend this to people who like teen comedies or just teen films in general. I would recommend this to people who wanted to see what the hype with Lindsay Lohan was all about, like why she became a big deal. And Lindsay is terrific in this thing, honestly. You know, this is probably her. This is probably her best performance in a movie, or at least this is her best movie. This is definitely her best movie. Um, yeah, that's those are my final thoughts.
Thank you. And it is only 5 years old because I'm only 21. Great.
That's right.
So, Steve, what are your final thoughts?
Oh wow, what a coincidence. I am actually 17 years old. So I am very close to get my license.
Mm.
So this is a terrific movie. Like I said in my first impressions, I think this is a movie that, especially if you want to learn how to write, especially comedies, but in general, just to like write a movie, how to like flesh out characters and stuff like that. This is a great movie to study that, in my opinion. I think it has an amazing pace. It has an incredible way for you to like get very invested into so many characters and make so many stand out at the same time while progressing the story or stories that are like there. Uh, Again, gotta give it up to my man Kevin from the math competition club. You know, dude saw Lindsay Lohan coming in hot for him, but he was like, you know what? I'm into more, women of color. So I'm sorry. So I gotta give it up to him of like just being a scene stealer. I just researched that he was actually trying to get the leading role in The Life of Pi, but unfortunately that didn't work out. Uh, but that's my guy. I hope he gets to shine soon. And Yeah, the movie's terrific. I would definitely recommend it to people that have not seen it, especially for guys that like comedy, because this is one of those movies that you wouldn't expect it because of the title and like people who are like the protagonist or whatever to be like something for you. But there's something here to learn and to laugh and to think about. And Yeah, it's a great movie. Recommend.
Yay. Thank you. And I forgot to
I agree.
compliment your pink flamingos too. Thank you for having pink flamingos, pink lights, pink. What'd you say that is again? Pink lighter. Oh man.
Oh wow, yes, sir. And pink parking ticket. Brought the
Oh
pink
yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah. Thanks for really committing. My final thoughts, obviously align with my first, second, third, 500th, 77th thought. Love the movie. Always will. I feel like even though we do graduate high school, a lot of the same things happen. There's always cliques. There'll be cliques where you work. There'll be things everywhere. It's always a good lesson to just remind yourself to keep in mind you never know what people are going through and
Yeah.
don't be mean. So I always love it for that. I'd recommend this movie to young adults. Like, it is getting older, so it might not be the first teen movie someone thinks of because it's not up there as like a late 90s, early 2000s classic. It kind of came out in a weird time to where like those movies kind of went away for a bit. So it kind of was like on the tip of it, and then technology kind of boosted, and it was just like it was weird timing. But I would recommend it to young people now, like just something to watch, like just like even if you're a young woman or a young man, like I think it's a good movie to kind of laugh at kind of like probably things that you're still going through in schools today. Also to people who haven't seen it because yeah, they just thought it was a chick flick, but I feel like it's so much more than just being a chick flick. So those will definitely be, people who just like never thought to watch it because like, oh, people hype it up too much. Like, no, no, really go watch it. Like it's pretty funny. But yeah, that's my final thought.
Right on. Well, if that's your final thought, I guess I just have one more question, and that's Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I almost broke a remote. I don't know why you asked me because it's not my turn. It
My
is
turn.
okay. Okay.
So I picked a documentary. It's one that I've had on my mind for quite a while, but I've been putting it off because I know I'm gonna get sad. So I decided, why should I be sad by myself when I can make other people sad with me? And it is Still, Michael J.
Oh yeah,
Fox movie.
yeah, I heard about this.
It's kind of a little autobiographical, I feel, because he has a memoir, I think, that just came out a few years ago, called Still. So I think the kind of following that. It's short. It's like an hour and a half and all that. So you know, he's a legend for all the movies and shows he did. So I kind of want to
Life
see.
with Mikey. Life with Mikey. Sorry. You guys didn't see that? All right, cool.
Anyway, so yeah, that's it.
So for El Dantino, Jason Echoes, Steve STP, and Marina, we'll catch you next week. Bye bye.